A Night at the Cottage by Richard Hughes. On the evening that I am considering, I passed by some 10 or 20 cozy barns and sheds without finding one to my liking. For country lanes are devious and muddy, and it was nearly dark when I found an empty cottage set back from the road, in a little bedraggled garden. There had been heavy rain earlier in the day, and the straggling fruit trees still wept over it. But the roof looked sound. There seemed to be no reason why it should not be fairly dry inside, as dry, at any rate, as I was likely to find anywhere. I decided, and with a long look up the road and a long look down the road, I drew an iron bar from the lining of my coat and forced the door, which was held only by a padlock and 2 staples. Inside, the darkness was damp and heavy. I struck a match, and with its haloed light I saw the black mouth of a passage somewhere ahead of me. And then it sputtered out. So I closed the door carefully, though I had little reason to fear passers-by at such a dismal hour and in so remote a lane. And, lighting another match, I crept down this passage to a little room at the far end, where the air was a bit clearer, even though the window was boarded across. Moreover, there was a little rusted stove in this room, and thinking it too dark for any to see the smoke, I ripped up part of the wainscot with my knife and soon was boiling my tea over a bright small fire, drying some of the day's rain out of my steamy clothes. Presently I piled the stove with wood to its top bar, and setting my boots where they would best dry, I stretched out my body to sleep. I cannot have slept very long, for when I woke, the fire was still burning brightly. I turned over and was about to go again to sleep when I was startled to hear steps in the passage. As I have said, the window was boarded, and there was no other door from the little room, no cupboard even, in which to hide. It occurred to me rather quickly and rather grimly that there was nothing to do but sit up and face the music, and that would probably mean being sent back to jail, which I had left 2 bare days before, and where, for various reasons, I was not anxious to be seen again. The stranger did not hurry himself, but presently walked slowly down the passage, attracted by the light of the fire. And when he came in, he did not seem to notice me where I lay huddled in a corner, but he walked straight over to the stove and warmed his hands at it. He was dripping wet, wetter than I should have thought it possible for a man to get, even on such a raining night. And his clothes were old and worn. The water dripped from him onto the floor. He wore no hat, and the straight hair over his eyes dripped water that sizzled spitefully on the embers. It occurred to me at once that he was no lawful citizen, but another wanderer like myself, a gentleman of the road. So I gave him some sort of greeting, and we were presently in conversation. He complained much of the cold and the wet, and huddled himself over the fire, his teeth chattering and his face an ill white. "No," I said, "no. It is no decent weather for the road, this. But I wonder this cottage isn't more frequented, for it's a tidy little bit of a cottage." Outside, the pale dead flowers and giant weeds stirred in the rain. "Time was," he answered. "There wasn't a tighter little cot in the county, nor a prettier garden. A regular little parlor she was, but now No folk'll live in it, and there's very few tramps'll stop here either. There were none of the rags and tins and broken food about that you would find in a place where many beggars are used to stay. Why is that? I asked. He gave a very troubled sigh before answering. Ghosts, he said. Ghosts, him that lived here. Why, it is a mighty sad tale, and I'll not tell it to you, but the upshot of it was that he drowned himself down to the mill pond. All slimy he was and floating when they pulled him out of it. There are folks that seen him floating on the pond, and folks has seen him round the corner of the school waiting for his childer. Seems as if he had forgotten like how they were all gone dead, and that's why he drowned himself. But there are some say he walks up and down this cottage, up and down, like when the smallpox had 'em, and they couldn't sleep unless they heard his feet going up and down by their doors. Drowned himself down to the pond, he did, and now he walks. The stranger sighed again, and I could hear the water squelch in his boots as he moved himself. But it doesn't do for the like of us to get superstitious, I answered. It wouldn't do for us to get seeing ghosts, or many's the wet night we'd be lying in the roadway. No, it wouldn't at all. I never had belief in walks myself. Yes. Nor I that. I never see ghosts, whoever may. He looked at me again in his queer melancholy fashion. No, 'spect you don't never. Some folk don't. It's hard enough for poor fellas to have no money to their lodging, apart from ghosts scaring 'em. It's the coppers, not spooks, make me sleep uneasy, I said. What with coppers and meddlesome-minded folk, it isn't easy to get a good night's rest nowadays. The water was still oozing from his clothes all about the floor, and a dank smell went up from him. God, man, can't you never get dry? 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 I shan't never be dry. 'Tisn't the likes of us that ever get dry, be it wet or fine, winter or summer. See that? He thrust his muddy hands up to the wrist in the fire, glowering over it fiercely and madly. But I caught up my 2 boots and ran crying out into the night.